The Grand Millennium Hotel gleamed like a palace of ice and ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across 500 of Seoul's most powerful faces. Politicians, billionaires, celebrities, international moguls, all gathered for the most exclusive charity gala of the decade. At the center of this glittering universe stood Elias Kong Adebayo, the Iron Monarch. A journalist had just asked him about his famously absent wife. His response silenced the room. If my wife disappeared tomorrow, nothing in my life would change. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Then Elias turned toward the grand entrance. His heart stopped. Standing beneath the golden archway was Zara, his wife, the woman he'd erased from every public record. She wasn't alone. 3 small children stood beside her. The youngest, a little girl, quietly wiped tears from her face. She had heard everything, for the first time in 7 years. The most feared man in Seoul lost control of his expression. Please like, share, and subscribe. The ballroom fell into complete silence. 500 pairs of eyes shifted between Elias and the woman at the entrance. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Is that his wife? I thought she was dead. Who are those children? Elias couldn't move. His fingers curled at his sides, knuckles whitening against the fabric of his perfectly tailored black suit. The Korean African symbolic tattoo on his left hand, an intertwined dragon and lion, seemed to pulse beneath the chandelier light. 7 years. 7 years since he'd seen her face. 7 years since she'd vanished without explanation. 7 years since he'd convinced himself that Zara Okafor meant nothing. And now she stood before him, more beautiful than his memories allowed, more devastating than any weapon his enemies had ever wielded. Zara's heart pounded against her ribs. This was a mistake, a catastrophic mistake. She hadn't known he would be here. The invitation had come from the hotel's charity foundation, a request for her bakery to provide desserts for their annual gala. A business opportunity, nothing more. She never imagined she'd walk through those doors and find herself face-to-face with the man she'd spent 7 years running from. The man she'd loved more than breath itself. The man whose cruel words had just shattered her daughter's heart. Mommy, the youngest whispered, tugging at Zara's dress. Her name was Amara, 5 years old, eyes like melted honey, a spirit as gentle as morning light. Mommy, why did that man say those mean things? Zara knelt instantly, cupping her daughter's tear-streaked face. It's nothing, my love. He wasn't talking about us. But Amara's twin brother stepped forward. Kwame, 5 years old, sharp jawline already forming, cold, calculating eyes that mirrored someone Zara couldn't bear to think about. He was talking about you, Kwame said quietly. I could tell. His face changed when he saw us. The third child remained silent. Nadia, also 5, triplets. She stood slightly apart from her siblings, her small hands folded in front of her exactly the way her father folded his during board meetings. She didn't speak. She simply watched, observed, calculated, just like Elias. Across the ballroom, Elias finally moved. One step, then another. The crowd parted for him like water fleeing fire. His security detail, 4 massive men in black, moved to intercept Zara, but Elias raised a single hand. They froze. Everyone froze. The tattoo on his wrist caught the light as his arm extended. Dragon and lion, Seoul and Lagos, power and heritage intertwined. Leave us, he commanded. His voice was low, controlled, deadly quiet. The security team retreated immediately. Zara rose to her feet, positioning herself between Elias and the children. Her body became a shield. Her gentle eyes hardened into steel. Don't come any closer. Her voice didn't waver. 7 years had taught her how to survive, how to protect, how to stand firm even when everything inside her trembled. Elias stopped 3 feet away. His eyes swept over her face, cataloging every change, every new line around her eyes, every shadow of exhaustion, every trace of the woman who had once been his entire world. Zara, her name on his lips, was a weapon, a blade sliding between her ribs. She refused to flinch. Chairman Kong Adebayo, she replied coldly. Congratulations on your charity work. I'm sure the children of Seoul appreciate your generosity. The formality was deliberate. A wall, a fortress, a reminder that whatever existed between them was dead. Elias's jaw tightened. The muscle beneath his sharp cheekbone flexed. You're using my Korean name. You never used my Korean name. I never knew you, she replied. Not really. Behind her, Kwame tugged at his mother's hand. Mom, people are staring. He was right. Every journalist in the room had their cameras raised. Every socialite was already typing on their phones. By morning, this moment would be front-page news across Asia and West Africa. The Iron Monarch's vanished wife returns, with 3 mysterious children. Zara had to leave. Now, before the questions started, before the investigations began, before Elias looked too closely at the 3 small faces staring up at him. We're leaving, Zara announced. She turned, gathering the children against her sides. Zara, his voice cut through the air like a command. She paused, but she didn't look back. You will not leave this hotel, Elias said quietly. Not until you explain where you've been for 7 years. Zara's spine straightened. I don't owe you explanations. I don't owe you anything. You owe me the truth. Now she turned. Fire blazed in her soft brown eyes. The truth? You want the truth, Chairman? She stepped toward him. Closer. Dangerously close. Close enough to see the tattoo climbing up the side of his neck. A continuation of the dragon line design that disappeared beneath his collar. The truth, Zara whispered, is that you just told 500 people that I mean nothing to you. Her voice cracked, just slightly. The truth is that my daughter heard every word. Elias's eyes flickered toward Amara. For the first time, he truly looked at the little girl. Her honey brown eyes, her trembling lower lip, the way she clutched her mother's dress like it was the only safe thing in the world. Something shifted behind his cold expression. Something dangerous. Something human. I didn't know you were. It doesn't matter what you knew, Zara cut him off. What matters is what you said, and what you meant. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, suffocating, electric. The entire ballroom held its breath. You disappeared, Elias finally said. Without warning. Without explanation. Without your permission. Zara's laugh was bitter. That's always been your problem, Elias. You think you own everything. Everyone. She leaned closer. So close he could smell the vanilla and cocoa butter that still clung to her skin. So close he could see the tears she refused to let fall. But you never owned me, and you never will. She turned away. This time, she didn't stop. The children followed obediently, their small shoes clicking against the marble floor. Kwame glanced back once. His cold eyes met Elias's, and something flickered in the Iron Monarch's chest. Recognition. Impossible recognition. Those eyes. He knew those eyes. He saw them every morning in the mirror. The penthouse suite of the Grand Millennium Hotel occupied the entire 47th floor. Elias stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at Seoul's glittering skyline. But he saw nothing. His mind replayed the moment over and over. Zara's face, the children, the tears, his own cruel words echoing back at him like bullets. If my wife disappeared tomorrow, nothing in my life would change. He believed it. For 7 years, he'd convinced himself it was true. He'd buried himself in work, in power, in the cold efficiency of building an empire that spanned 2 continents. He'd told himself that Zara was a weakness he'd successfully excised. A chapter closed. A wound healed. But wounds don't heal when you refuse to acknowledge the blade. His phone buzzed. A message from his head of security. Target vehicle tracked to Gangnam District. Residence identified. Luxury bakery on lower level. Private apartment above. Elias stared at the address. She lived here, in Seoul. For how long? How long had she been breathing the same city air while he convinced himself she no longer existed? His thumb hovered over the call button. 1 word from him, and 20 men would surround her building within minutes. 1 command, and she would never escape him again. But he didn't make the call. Instead, he walked to the bar and poured himself a glass of whiskey. The amber liquid caught the light. The tattoo on his hand, dragon and lion intertwined, seemed to mock him. His father's legacy, his mother's heritage, the symbol of a man who controlled everything, except the one woman who had broken him. "Sir." The voice came from the doorway. Elias didn't turn. "What is it, Marcus?" Marcus O'Yelleran, his head of security and oldest friend, stepped into the room. Nigerian, former military, the only person alive who knew every secret Elias buried. "The journalists are requesting statements. The story is already spreading across social media. By morning, every network in Asia will be running headlines about your wife's return. Let them." Marcus hesitated. "Sir, there's something else." Now Elias turned. Marcus's expression was unreadable, but his eyes held something Elias rarely saw. Concern. "The children," Marcus said carefully. "My team ran a preliminary background check. And they're triplets, born approximately 5 years ago. Nigerian citizenship. No father listed on the birth certificates." Elias's glass froze halfway to his lips. 5 years. Triplets. No father listed. The mathematics were impossible to ignore. "Their ages," Elias said slowly. "Confirm them. 5 years and 4 months." Elias's hand tightened around the glass. The whiskey trembled. If Zara had become pregnant before she disappeared, if she'd been carrying his children when she vanished, if those 3 small faces belonged to him. The glass shattered in his grip. Whiskey and blood splattered across the marble floor. "Sir, leave me." Marcus didn't argue. He simply retreated, pulling the door closed behind him. Elias stood in the silence, blood dripping from his palm. The pain meant nothing. He'd survived bullet wounds, knife attacks, assassination attempts that would have destroyed lesser men. But this possibility, this terrible, beautiful possibility, it threatened to unravel everything he'd built. Zara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd been kneading dough for 20 minutes, trying to lose herself in the familiar rhythm of baking. But her mind kept returning to the gala, to his face, to the way his eyes had swept over her, like she was a ghost he'd never expected to see again. "Mama." She looked up. Nadia stood in the kitchen doorway, her small hands folded in front of her. "Yes, baby." "Are you scared of that man?" Zara's heart clenched. She wiped flour from her hands and knelt to meet her daughter's eyes. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you shake when you think about him, and your eyes get wet, but you don't let the tears fall." Nadia was too observant, too intelligent, too much like her father. Zara pulled her daughter into a gentle embrace. "I'm not scared," she lied. "I'm just surprised. That's all." "Who is he?" The question hung in the air. Zara had known this moment would come eventually. She'd rehearsed 1,000 answers, 1,000 half-truths designed to protect her children from a world they weren't ready to understand. But looking into Nadia's eyes, those cold, calculating eyes that saw everything, Zara couldn't bring herself to lie completely. "He's someone I used to know," she said quietly. "A long time ago, before you were born." "Did he hurt you?" Zara's breath caught. "Yes, he hurt me. Not with his hands. Never with his hands. But with his silence. His secrets. His impossible world of power and darkness that had threatened to consume everything she loved." "It's complicated, baby," she finally said. "Grown-up things are always complicated." Nadia studied her mother's face for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, but if he tries to hurt you again, I'll protect you." Despite everything, Zara smiled. "I know you will, my little lion." The bakery opened at 7 the next morning. Zara had built Coco and Soul from nothing. 3 years of 18-hour days. Every penny she'd saved going into equipment, ingredients, and a tiny storefront in Gangnam.